Number 5 story of the week is a few Lightning Python tools for node runners. This is from Hakuna. Lightning Territory, June 9th. 4 comments, 1488 sats. Keyan, what's this?
Yeah, it looks like Hakuna wrote a bunch of Python scripts that they use to manage their routing node. So Lightning routing nodes can be fairly complex in terms of managing liquidity, and especially if you're trying to make money or minimize payment failures, or just like improve your node ranking, get more people to manage to make successful payments through you. You want to manage your node well. And so a lot of Lightning node operators end up with fairly bespoke solutions. And in some cases, they don't even share the solutions that they have because it becomes sort of a competitive advantage. Because you figured out something on the network that no one else does, and you can generate basically more yield on your Bitcoin by routing that way. But it looks like Hakuna released a bunch of tools that they made for themselves that does a lot of this work that you'd want to do as a node runner, like when you have too much outbound liquidity, swapping out on chain so that you have more inbound liquidity. Other things like automatically modifying your fees based on certain conditions. It interacts with a bunch of tools like LNDG, which a lot of node runners use to sort of automate a lot of channel management stuff. Amboss, for I think leasing liquidity, possibly buying liquidity, peer swap for the swapping. He also has even an LNbit script where he says he pays out his children their like allowance on an automated schedule from using LNbits. I don't know, just a lot of cool little tools like this. Be neat. I like that he kept them all as independent scripts, so that you can kind of just take what you want from it rather than just like one like mega tool where you have this huge unwieldy program on your computer. But anyway, I thought this was a great post. Happy to see it in the top, and then we had a few node runners in the comments talking about it a bit.
Cool.
Yeah,
Looks like you got the top
you've never.
comment. Go ahead.
I was going to ask. You've never run a routing node, right, Car?
Not
Not yet.
professionally. No, not professionally.
Yeah, someday. Someday it'll be Car ready for Car.
No, I used to run a node. It just got to a point where the channel management just became too
Yeah, it's a lot.
it's a lot. I mean, I was talking to Killian from Bolts, and that was one of the questions I asked them was like, do you think that'll ever get to a point where like the average pleb runner can make that a little bit easier? And he said he said something not very controversial, just like very practical. He said no. He thinks most people will just run like Phoenix server and be connected to these bigger liquidity channels. Uh, um, like and then he said something surprising. He said even his CTO doesn't run a node. So
Whoa.
yeah, but it makes sense though. Like he probably finds the bulk of his job is
Running someone
maintenance.
else's node.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it just says the times have changed a little bit. I personally think I think we just need to incentivize, and this is from somebody else I was talking to for the early days podcast. Was he said that there's really no incentive for a pleb to run a node other than decentralizing the network. So I think we need to either lower the cost of running a node, fix the channel problem that we have with it, or um, um, or find some other incentives, you know, to doing it. So I mean, yeah, because I think you can buy like an Umbral or like a Start Nine. It's like $500. Um, so it's yeah. Or you could just
That's
or you could just run Alby. You could run a hosted node through Alby for like $10 a month, or you can just run Phoenix. through your phone.
Yeah. I want to clear up that it's not, Start9. If you're buying Start9 and Umbrel nodes from them directly, on some level you are sort of like sponsoring their business, because
It's a good point.
the computers that they're selling, while they're like easy to use and they're purpose built for this, you can find comparable computers, especially used computers that have comparable specs that are much cheaper, that are like $100 to $200. If you know how to hunt for a deal. In many cases, I know there's a few people who advocate for using laptops for nodes because they have this backup power supply. Like if you're living somewhere where the power goes out occasionally, if you're using a laptop, it doesn't matter so much if it goes out, because you have a laptop battery there to power your node, at least for 8 hours or so. Anyway, there's a lot of options, but I definitely think it's true that it's hard for a pleb to be a routing node manager, and I think the tooling is just going to get easier, and we'll have a variety of solutions, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think man, it would be good to see like a $99 node out there that was just a mainstream device. I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing the bit axes sell so fast to the plebs, you know? So it would be
Yeah,
great. It would be great to see a $99 node that also, was a lightning node of a sort. Do you know what I mean? That also, like,
yeah.
it was like basically that you could run, connect it to your phone, had liquidity plugged into it. It does all, even if it like still was kind of like slightly like a hybrid solution of a sort, where it was like, what am I trying to say here? Where it was still kind of a hybrid like a hybrid, what am I trying to say? Where it was cloud, but also um, self-hosted node of a sort that was like $99, but allowed you to participate, to decentralize the network. I think that would be really cool. That if that device existed, I think people would most no, a pleb would actually run that, even though it was like this in between kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great initiative, for someone like OpenSats, or to fund someone to build like a web shop where it's sort of like a break even. They're selling break even node hardware, and they come pre-installed with something like Start9 or
Do
Umbra on it, depending
do
on
you
what the
know what I'm
license
talking
you are.
about? Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about? Like where it's like maybe it's running like an actual
yeah.
node, but maybe it doesn't like keep all the transactions on it, but it can send like it can verify every, I
It's a
don't know.
it's a prune node. It would be a. I think
Yeah,
the way you design it is you'd probably want to make. I think the goal, like someone who's motivated to do this and do this as like a charity, I think would probably want people to be as self sovereign as possible. But
right.
you can make these pre configuration choices that make it so that it can run on cheaper hardware than you might find otherwise. And a lot of people aren't aware of like some of the things that you can do to make it much less resource intensive to run a node. And so that's kind of what you want, is like a what would Start9 or Umbrel be made like if it were not assuming if we're assuming the cheapest hardware possible, and then modify them to do that, and then supply the hardware necessary to run it. I think you could probably break even at like $100 a node, at least in terms of like material costs. But that would be a great initiative to centralize the network.
Yeah,
If there's any
that,
like
that
whales out there that want a project, I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, because that's what I think you would need, is like getting something like that out there to the plebs to run, and then you could even have a lightning node that just runs Alby or Phoenix, and it could be the it could even just be a hosted one on the cloud, right? And the plebs wouldn't even know the difference. They would just think that they're running a lightning node on that same device. So that's what I'm trying to say, is like somebody needs to come out with like a hybrid solution of a sort, and that way you have everybody running a node in this kind of like thing, and then you get them to come to the next level. And
Mm.
that's kind of what Apple did with the Nano. Like they released the Nano, and then that way you got everybody just getting, just using their
Gateway
play
drug.
as a
Yeah.
gateway. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden
Yeah.
everybody just had an iPod, then an iPhone, and then changed the world. But anyways,
Yeah.
so